morning, everyone. It's kind of an odd setup. It's not that we're accustomed to having that much public, but it seems pretty bare. Anyway, welcome everybody to the meeting, a regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We're also sitting as all special taxing districts. This is the April 6th, 2020, 9 a.m. meeting. Every board member is here, so I will have Supervisor Pancrase help us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I don't know if you can tell from home, but we're all sitting at least 6 foot apart. So we're trying to keep our physical distancing. I don't know about the social, we're still keeping it real here. All right, the first item in the agenda is called to the public, and it is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. Do we have any public? Anybody here that is not in the agenda? Well, we're gonna leave it open throughout the meeting, so in case somebody shows up a little late or something, we can still take whatever issue they have and at least listen to it. The next item in the agenda is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. And during this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal action will be taken. The first proclamation is a proclamation proclaiming the month of April 2020 as National County Government Month. Supervisor Simmons.
Alrighty, whereas counties provide an essential leadership role in protecting and enhancing the health, welfare, and safety of citizens in the community and delivering quality services while containing costs through efficient use of tax dollars, and whereas county governments have a broad range of responsibilities to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement by providing public health, justice, safety, infrastructure, transportation, technology, emergency management, and economic services that play a key role in every aspect of residents' daily lives. And whereas there are 15 counties in the state of Arizona serving the needs of every resident of the state, and whereas Arizona counties reflect the wide diversity of people, culture, and landscape in our state, and whereas in recognition of the leadership, innovation, and valuable service provided by the state's counties, now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of April 2020 to be National County Government Month in recognition of the leadership, innovation, and invaluable service provided by all Arizona counties.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Supervisor Simmons. The next proclamation is a proclamation proclaiming the month of April 2020 as Yuma County Government Employee Appreciation Month. Supervisor Pancrase.
Thank you. Proclaiming the month of April 2020 as Yuma County Employment Appreciation Month. Whereas Yuma County and its employees play essential roles in keeping our community safe and secure by preserving public health and well-being, ensuring public safety, and promoting local economies while providing professional and loyal public service. And whereas Yuma County and its employees take their role seriously in protecting and enhancing the health, welfare, and safety of citizens in our community, and to delivering effective quality services while containing costs through efficient use of local tax dollars. And whereas Yuma County is one of 15 counties in the state of Arizona responsible for and serving the needs of every resident, and we are proud that our employees are committed to that responsibility and are dedicated to customer service. And whereas Yuma County reflects the wide diversity of people, culture, and landscape in our state, with Yuma County employees developing a reputation for quality and excellence. Now therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of April 20th to be Yuma County Government Employee Appreciation Month.
Thank you, Supervisor. This is where it gets a little weird because normally that proclamation is done right before we have the County Employee Appreciation event. And this year, obviously, that has been either postponed or moved aside. It's postponed so far, but we do want to let the employees know that we do appreciate the work they do, especially during this difficult times, this crisis. And it was nice to see. Obviously, it was very nice because it didn't stop me, but I saw a deputy sheriff with somebody off the side of the road there, and we know the law enforcement is doing their job as I was coming in. And we know not only law enforcement, but almost every department is dealing with these difficult times in the best way they can, and still trying to continue doing their job the best they can. So thank you very much to everybody that makes us go, makes the county go. I know that we wouldn't be on the air if it wasn't because some employees are still doing their job. The next proclamation. It's a proclamation proclaiming the month of April 2020 as Fair Housing Month. Again, this is another proclamation that would probably be read today and then read later on at an event for celebrating Fair Housing Month. That has also been postponed, but I'm going to still read the proclamation. Proclaiming the month of April 2020 as Fair Housing Month, whereas April 2020 marks the 52nd anniversary of the National Fair Housing Act, which emphasizes a national policy of fair housing, and whereas under Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, it affirms the rights of all citizens to equal housing opportunities, free from discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, or familial status, and whereas provides an opportunity for citizens to rededicate themselves to the principle of freedom of choice and to reacquaint themselves with the rights and responsibilities that are theirs under the law. And whereas implementation of the fair housing policy of Yuma County requires positive commitment, involvement, and support from each and every one of our citizens, and whereas the Board of Supervisors wishes to create equal housing opportunities for all persons living, working, traveling through, or doing business in Yuma County, and whereas Fair Housing Month is a time set aside each year to remind citizens that we not only have the right to own and rent property, but we also have an individual responsibility to guard that right from any infringement. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of April 2020 to be Fair Housing Month. Well, that takes care of all the proclamations for today, and let's just move on to the consent calendar. In the consent calendar, the following items are listed under the consent agenda and will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Anybody wants to pull out any items? I'd like to pull out item number 6. Any other one? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and approve consent items 1 through 24 with the exception of item number 6.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent calendars, item 1 through 24. There be no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is county administration is an action to distribute $10,000 in program funding from the Cocopah Indian tribes to the Crossroad Mission. Normally, this would be a situation where we would have the Cocopah tribe or a representative available here, and we would have the recipients available here. There's nobody here from the mission, right? Okay, so we just want to make sure that we take time to acknowledge the contribution that the Cocopah tribe makes to the community through their donations. And, we are honored to be the ones that distribute it, but in reality, the credit should go to the Cocopah tribe. And we hope sincerely that the mission, which recently had a very bad situation happen with their sewage system, utilize the funds, $10,000, to provide for the safety and welfare of their residents. So I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 6 as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and second to approve item number 6 as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody, anybody opposed? Okay, that passes that item. Then we're moving on to, we're recessing Yuma County Board of Supervisors and convening as a Yuma County Housing Board. And we have a discussion calendar in which we will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first one, and I know we don't have the member that normally is with us, the member of the Housing Board that technically is also part of the governing board. So we're just gonna have the item by ourselves here, just one single item, I think. And the item is to have a public hearing to allow the public to comment on the Yuma County Housing Department Public Housing Agency annual plan for fiscal year 2020 and the 5-year plan for 2020, for the years 2020 to 2024. I'm going to first open the public hearing so we can conduct the public hearing. Is there anybody here in the public that would like to comment? This is a plan that we approve every year. It is procedural, it's required by HUD, and it has to go through a public hearing process, but the annual plan is something that's thoroughly discussed, and it normally follows the one we already had before, so there's not that many changes that I can see from the presentation. Is there anybody in the public that would like to make a public comment on this item? Is there anybody outside? We don't know, right? Okay, so we'll move on then to, I'm gonna close the public comment section and move it back to the board. I'll
Mr.
entertain a motion to approve the Yuma County Housing, the public housing annual plan and the 5-year plan.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Supervisor McLeod.
do we need a motion if there were no comments? The recommended motion is to attach comments.
Well, if there were
Or we
any,
just
we
move
would
it
probably
forward.
attach them. I don't think we need I don't think we have, I'd say that we are on the safe side. All it
It says
says,
discussion and action, so yes,
Yeah,
it
so
requires some
it's-
action, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
you would need a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we receive the fiscal year 2020 Public Housing Agency Annual Plan for fiscal year 2020 and the 5-year plan for 2020 to 2024.
I'll
All right.
second that.
all right, there's been a motion and a second on item number 1 of the Housing Governing Board. Any discussion on the item? If there's no discussion on the item, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The motion carries, and we go back into regular session, and we have a discussion, and we get into the portion of the agenda where we have discussion and action items. And in this particular one, the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first one is the chairman will appoint a board member to serve as liaison to the Yuma County Local Workforce Development Board. I had Supervisor Pancrasi ask me to appoint her, so I hereby make that appointment.
Thank you.
Okay. I think you're gonna serve until 2035 or something like that.
Well, I have toured their facility. I know there's the high school that they operate. I've attended several of their meetings, and they're doing some really good work for Yuma
Good.
County.
And we
So,
know how much you like to keep busy, so it's not a
Yes.
problem.
Thank you.
Right. Number 2 is Development Services, Planning and Zoning Division. And in this one, I think we're gonna handle it a little differently. We're going to bring in the presenter, and if there's a member of the public that, or a member that needs to be here while we discuss this, I think we're gonna request for him or her to come in. Do we have anybody? Let me read it first. The first one is a request for modification of subdivision regulation for the proposed 12E subdivision. Craig Calvin of Calvin Engineering, agents for James F. Platt and Lavina S. Platt, request 2 modifications from the Yuma County subdivision regulations for the proposed 12E subdivision, assessors parcel number 700-39-009, which is zone low density residential, 6,000 square feet minimum, located in the vicinity of the southeast corner of South Frontage Road and Scottsdale Drive, Yuma, Arizona, We will get us a PowerPoint presentation. Is there anybody that called Mr. Colvin's here? All right, so begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, presenting request for modifications for the 12B subdivision. This is a request modification from section 4.12, paragraph C, and section 4.15, paragraph D of the Yuma County zoning subdivision regulations for the proposed 12B subdivision located in a foothills planning area, southeast corner of the South Frontage Road and Scottsdale Drive. This is the vicinity and zoning map showing the location of the project site, parcel number 9, which is highlighting in hatch in red, zone low density residential 6,000 square feet minimum. It's approximately 19.09 acres in size. It's proposed to have 103 lots. This, the 12E subdivision tentative map was approved, recommended approval by the Planning Commission on March 3rd. Properties on the northwest are zoned general commercial, while properties on the south are zoned rural area 10 acre minimum. Property on the west is zoned manufacturing home park. Modification from section 4.12, paragraph C, intersection at corners. It is requested by the developer not to provide at street corners a minimum 25 feet by 25 feet street chamfer at the intersection of the property lines on the corner lots. The developer is proposing instead to build 20 feet by 20 feet chamfers. This is a tentative map showing the location where the developer is proposing not to provide a 25 feet by 25 feet chamfers. Modification from section 4.15, paragraph D. Residential collector type streets, quarter miles. It is requested by the developer not to improve Avenue 11.3/4 E, Henson Avenue, throughout the entire site. The developer proposes to close the link to the South Frontage Road for future development. This is again the tentative map of the 12E subdivision, and the circle is the location where the developer is just proposing a lot and blocking Henson Avenue not to improve that, to connect to South Frontage Road. The Planning Commission's recommendation is for approval of modification from section 4.12, paragraph C, not to provide at street corners a minimum of 25 feet by 25 feet right-of-way of chamfer at the intersection of the property lines on the corners. The developer is proposing instead to build a 20 feet by 20 feet right-of-way chamfers. The engineering department recommends approval of these requests only for internal streets, but not for Scottsdale Drive and Avenue 11.3/4 E. Minimum unobstructed site distance shall be maintained at local collector streets by means of 25 feet by 25 feet chamfer to ensure a proper line of sight is kept. So again, this is a tentative map showing in red where staff is recommending the 25 by 25 chamfer, and in green where it's agreeing with the developer and the commission to improve those corners with 20 feet by 20 feet. The Planning Commission recommends denial of modification from section 4.15D, not to improve Avenue 11.3/4 E throughout the entire site. The developer proposes to close the link to the South Frontage Road. The engineering department recommends also denial of this request. There is an existing dedication and road improvements along the alignment to the south, and therefore the developer shall provide a road stub out for future development onto South Frontage Road. This is an aerial view showing the subject property, and on the south, within the circle or ellipse, there's the existing improvement, Henson. Commission's recommendation denial for modification. I did that one. I went backwards. There you go. And this concludes this presentation. Mr. Chairman, staff here.
Supervisor McLeod.
Chairman, please go back to your last slide there. No, I guess the one before that, showing all the circles of all the there. So if Henson Avenue is closed off, that would be on the north. That would be to South Frontage Road, right?
Chairman, that is correct.
Which is commercial properties in front of it.
That is correct.
Those
Chairman.
then become internal streets. Why would you, if you're recommending it for the other internal streets, why not those?
Chairman, I will defer that question to the engineering department, Arturo.
Alvarez, Engineering Division. We're recommending a 25 by 25 on the local collectors, which in essence is on the east side and on the west side. And also, we're recommending for that road to be extended for future development onto South Frontage Road. We're not recommending to be closed at that section.
But entering,
We're not recommending for them to block that,
For that. but when you look at it from the standpoint of entering South Frontage Road from a subdivision like this, it's not real safe. Scottsdale Drive, isn't it gonna have a traffic light if it doesn't already?
Actually, we're recommending a traffic impact study for this development. There's a future development on the south side that's gonna push all the volume onto Scottsdale Drive. So our intent is to have another way out, which is onto South Frontage Road. And that will be developed at a later time. We're not saying it's gonna be developed right now, but we like to keep it open for future development.
And is assessor's parcel ending in 8 there behind that proposed lot blocking Henson? Is there a street there now through that?
No, there's no street, but I believe there's another.
Is there right of way or?
Currently there's no right of way, but again, that could be done at a later time by us acquiring the right of way or through another project coming in.
What happens if the owner of parcel 8 decides to develop it? Are you gonna tell them he can't develop it according to how they want to because you might put a road through there?
They could develop it, I believe, but we will require them to have their access point along that same alignment. That, what is it? Henson.
Can you
Henson.
go back one? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, may I
Sure.
have a question?
Are you done, Supervisor
Are you
McLeod?
done, Rafa?
Yeah, for now, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Franklin,
Can you go back one to the picture?
to the picture of the area?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
Ariel? Sure, just a second.
That didn't work.
Yeah, that didn't work.
There you go, that's the one I want to see.
Okay.
11.
That one.
Okay, so the piece of property that is just south of the one we're talking about is about to be developed, correct? It's in the planning.
It's in the planning, yes, that's correct.
And then if we don't put a road on Henson, then Scottsdale is going to take all that traffic that's back in there, and all of it'll be going down Scottsdale, right? And for future use, it seems to me that we're having that right now in the city of Yuma. There's 16th Street, 24th Street, and 32nd Street, and 8th Street, and at 5 o'clock at night, they are impossible to get down. So it seems to me for future planning that we should have both of those exits out of there so that in the future when the development continues out there, which it is, there's more than one ingress egress to those subdivisions.
You mean
So-
usable ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, usable ingress and egress. I mean, maybe not right now, it doesn't need to be, but for any
Eventually.
future growth, it's going to.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
just
Simmons?
kind of add with what Supervisor Pancrazy is saying. With Henson, Scottsdale right now is catching the brunt of any traffic coming out of that subdivision that's there currently to the south. I deal with numerous issues as far as vehicles cutting through to Fortuna already from that subdivision, taking 34th and 35th. So they're avoiding Scottsdale and they're avoiding that south frontage road. It scares me making Scottsdale the main exit point,
The only exit.
the only exit point.
Yeah.
Henson, we just need another outlet there, I believe, with all the development going in there. Because like I said, I've got issues now with the traffic going through Yuma East from those new subdivisions. People running 60 miles an hour down residential streets, trying to cut across to avoid the lights in South Frontage Road. So anything we can do to add another street in there, I believe we need to. Another exit point.
It's a normal requirement, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. And as you can see, the subdivision to the south did dedicate and also develop their half of the road, which is in this.
Down there, I see it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, and if you don't have any more questions, I'll ask Mr. Colvin to come up if he wants to say something.
Well, I do.
You do? All right, Supervisor
I'm
McLeod.
sorry.
The engineering
Probably for
division.
you, yeah.
The
If you can go
engineering.
back to the slide showing the commercial parcels again.
Yes. I get it right this time. There you go. Just start that part.
No, keep going, please. Keep going.
The what?
Tentative map.
Tentative map, oh, okay.
That'll work. Yeah, that's the one I was looking for. So, just back to the commercial parcels there, the one on the right, number 8, and you got 7 and 6 and 5, right, to the west. So is what you're saying, when the owner of parcel 8 wants to develop, they'd have to put a road in connecting to Henson as their access point, but then parcel 7, 6, and 5, they'll be allowed access directly off the South Frontage Road, correct?
I believe there was a land division on those commercial properties that the access points was dictated depending on a spacing, and I don't, if I can recall, I think they're common driveways on 2 parcels. So we wouldn't ask him to improve the road, but we would ask him to have the road designated on that alignment.
Who pays for the actual construction of the road, the county
If
standard?
at a later time is required, it's a need that we need to have a secondary access onto, the county would at that point.
County would.
Yeah, because we wouldn't ask the commercial development on CA to bear the full
That's
cost.
what I was getting at.
Yeah,
that's
we
exactly.
wouldn't be able to ask.
So
we-
the
you
county's
know,
able to provide that
Yes.
then?
Mhm.
Okay.
We have done that in other
Mr.
places as
Chair?
well.
Supervisor Pankratz?
I have one more question. They're only being asked to develop the land or to designate the land that is on their property. They wouldn't be responsible for the land that's south of their property that doesn't have a road, correct? Okay.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? If not, I'll open the public hearing and allow Mr. Colvin to come up. Mr. Colvin?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Craig Colvin, Colvin Engineering, 6105 East Alyssa Lane. Let me start off with the chamfers. The reason that it was approved by the Planning Commission to do just 20 by 20 throughout the entire subdivision is that we just completed a project called 10 East subdivision on 10E, and that was approved for 20-foot chamfers. And it also was on a major road, which is 10E, which is owned by the city, and they're the ones that basically they required the 20-foot because that's kind of where they're heading. There's plenty of room for the sidewalks, the handicap ramps. In fact, I just had one approved and platted here for 15 feet of chamfers. And so they're kind of looking at getting rid of more land. It's unusable land for them, and so that's why in 10 East, we did, it was already approved for the 10-foot chamfers throughout, even along 10 East, which is a major thoroughfare through there. So that's kind of why we're going for the 20-foot throughout, and that's why the Planning Commission approved the 20-foot on their side of it. As far as the modification to remove the right-of-way through where Lot 1 is, when we first met on this, the feeling at the county was that this isn't going to go through. There's no right-of-way dedicated on this parcel number 8. But also think about the other side. That's an APS substation on the other side, and you'd have to get buy right-of-way from APS to get this big roadway that you're talking about going through there. Thinking about down here, the parcel, if you look at in the aerial, there's that subdivision to the south where you're talking about all this coming through. That's where it ends, is at the bottom, 2 streets down. It's all state land below there. So there's nothing developed below that. There's not a lot of traffic coming up through here. So all you're going to be putting on this street until into the future, if the state land develops in the future, is just half of that little subdivision down there that's only 2 or 3 streets. So there's not that much coming up through here. But if you do, you're funneling a lot of traffic into a small residential area. This is a park on the other side. There's no traffic coming in. All the traffic would be locally coming up to that intersection point. Now, on the reverse of what you're talking about, spreading out traffic so there's not so much congestion on Scottsdale, along the South Frontage Road, the idea has been to put those at every half mile or mile markers so you don't have a lot of traffic popping out onto that busy thoroughfare going through there. Only do it at signalized traffic intersections here at Scottsdale. The next one will be at 12 East, where we'll have a major light and intersection there to funnel traffic over there. This would be the light to traffic funnel traffic over here. So at the time when we first went to the county, the idea was, no, this really isn't needed, and that's why we put the lot there in the first place, is because on the other side of what you're talking about, it was kind of suggested we not need that right away. So that's the only reason we put it there. So. Any questions? I don't know if I made that clear enough, but that's kind of where we were coming from.
Any questions?
I have a question about the APS. It's, can I go back to that picture again? I can't.
Aerial?
Area?
The aerial, I do better with an aerial. Okay. That's the APS substation over here?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There.
It still seems like there's plenty of property to be able to put a street all the way out.
There's property, but then you have another development at the South Frontage Road where you have things right on the property line there.
In theory, your presentation makes sense, but in reality, when you have an emergency or something, it's always much better to have more access points to the subdivision than less access points. If for some reason Scottsdale gets blocked up, I mean, there would be basically no way to get in and out of that subdivision.
If you'll notice, there is right-of-way dedicated along this park over here that goes up. So it'd be a matter of getting that side of the right-of-way for the APS and the other. If you needed an emergency entrance, you still could get that in the future.
I don't know. It seems to me like we always have this problem where in the future people, ask us, why didn't you ask for a street down there or something? It's always the same. We keep talking about it, and then all of a sudden, people start saying, oh, well, especially Supervisor Borges, starts remembering the past and saying, why didn't you do this when you had a chance, and now you're leaving a problem to us? And well, I don't know. If for no other reason than that, I would vote to have that street there.
He has a question.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry, yes.
aren't we gonna have a light at Scottsdale, if not already?
There is no light there yet.
But I think there's one in plan.
I know, Maggie, I know you want to say something, Maggie.
Brothers in June.
Remain 6 feet behind there.
Like I said, we're asking for a traffic impact study on this development. And the traffic study will take into account this development and the one to the south. And if it requires a light, we'll have a light.
Okay, I thought one was already under consideration.
That, I don't have that information with me as far as what are the plans in there on that one.
Do you know, Darren, I just could swear that there was
I'm trying to remember.
discussion to put a light at Scottsdale.
I think there's been discussion, but I don't think there's anything on the horizon with it.
And so, to Mr. Colvin's point, I agree with him. That frontage road, especially in the winter, we know how busy it gets. And you spoke earlier, I think, Mr. Chairman, about, or I guess you, Supervisor Simmons, about people darting on side streets, which is exactly what you'll create. People, I don't want to wait for the light, so they're going to go up this Henson, I think it is, and try to avoid that, and then jumping out onto that very busy intersection. It just creates dangerous situations. There's merit both ways, but I do not like those little side roads popping out onto such a busy thoroughfare as the South Frontage Road. I think it should be squeezed into a signalized area. And coming home at 5 o'clock, you're not going to have a lot of congestion there because it's going to be, for the most part, a right-hand turn onto Scottsdale Drive and into the subdivision. I don't think we can compare that at all to 16th, 8th Street, 24th. So I'm just kind of hesitant to have that secondary access pop out unsignalized onto such a busy thoroughfare.
I Supervisor McLeod, I look at it more like the one on the south side where you had that, side road. You sort of want it to be a little more consistent because what happens now, if we give up on that right now, we're gonna have to give it up on the next development there to the south of that. I mean,
And then you have,
and then
It's
you,
closed off, it's closed off, you're right, Mr. Chairman.
then you have a
Then
half
you-
a road.
I just, you can see people going
Yeah,
out
I
the
know.
back way because they don't want to wait for the light, darting out onto a busy thoroughfare, so.
And you'll turn
maybe
right
you
off
could
of
shut
there.
it off at the end over there, but Supervisor Porches.
I think the impact traffic study will probably determine if we can only do a right-hand turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll eliminate that, trying to people going there and just trying to make a left turn.
Yeah,
It should,
Because they gotta use
but-
the traffic light, so.
yeah.
I don't
Right
know what
turn
Maggie
only.
has to say.
Yeah.
You only have 2
Usually very
minutes.
informative.
I just got confirmation, there's no signal plans for Scottsdale.
There is not.
There is not.
Okay.
And also,
My
I
mistake.
concur, we can make that as a right exit,
Right
right
turn
out
only.
only,
Mhm.
at a
Okay.
future time when that gets developed.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, it's obviously pros and cons. Maggie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. Just wanted to clarify that any future improvements along Henson Avenue or Avenue 11 and 3/4 C, any future improvements will be on the west side of the center line of the alignment.
Right.
So you were mentioning the APS substation. That will not require any additional dedications. The dedications would come from parcel 8 to the north, and it would be something that the county may in the future negotiate to purchase that portion of the right of way.
Yeah. Mr. Coleman, you wanted to say something? Okay, one more.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this will help, but there will be, it looks like there's going to be a need for a traffic study. We either have the option of doing a traffic study or put some money towards that intersection, future light. Can it be a condition in whether your approval or denial that if a traffic study, if it says no traffic through there, that we don't do it, that if they says we need a connection, then we do it? Is that a possibility to put that kind of language in your?
In other words, if the traffic study determined to be a usable option, something
Right.
that will help, that sort of takes, that's a little odd. I don't know if we can actually just, delay that. I mean, we had done contingent stuff, but
Similar to that, yeah.
similar to that, but I don't know about it.
Chairman, I just got a quick question. Are you looking at any improvements on Scottsdale?
We have the option, and engineering can clarify, we have the option now of doing some improvements and put some money towards, whatever future lighting system is there, or do the traffic study, which will say yay or nay. So right now, we're leaning towards putting the improvements, and the improvements would consist of, right now, it's only a half street through all of that. We would finish this whole width along our property all the way up to the intersection, full width, to allow more traffic to get through that intersection. So,
And that would benefit the owners because they own the frontage parcel too, correct? Yeah.
well, they own the frontage right there in Scottsdale, but not the parcel above.
Now, would you be,
But that is dedicated above. We would do the improvements all the way up to the south frontage road,
but not that area in the area south of it,
not the area to the south.
That would.
to join up with the other subdivision where they're
Go
improving.
twice
The
as far as your
responsi-
property
That would
line?
be the responsibility of the.
Yes,
buil-
so
of
we're
the-
doing basically
Whoever has
twice as
that-
much,
Parcel.
work to put that road all the way up there.
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Guys need to make a decision here.
What do you think about the suggestion on the traffic study?
I think the chamfer issue is not that big of an issue to me.
Right.
But the street dedication is, and I think that both the planning and zoning and staff are saying no. So, you know, we have both recommending no, and I don't know if there's enough reason for
No
us
to
to
parcel
go
number
against
one.
it.
No to parcel number 1,
Yes.
correct? I'm okay with that.
Okay. You wanted to say something, sir?
Oh, I'm okay with that.
Board. My name is Nathan Haida. I'm at 14772 South Avenue 4 1/4 out in the counties. I'm the developer for this project as well as the contractor. And I just wanted to touch on those two items real quick. I just got done doing the 10 East subdivision with that developer. I was the guy in the trenches every day. I was the guy that was taking care of an oversight of everything there. Thank you. What I can tell you right now is just based off of what I know from 10 East, that road in particular that runs in the south frontage, that was an absolute disaster. There was an accident weekly, sometimes even more so. So I see the benefit of extending that, but I also see the hazards. There was a tremendous amount of activity on that street. There was a tremendous amount of things that went on right in that intersection with the golf course and just being so busy, and obviously more so in the winter with the snowbirds. So in my opinion, I find that to be very unsafe, and I don't know if stacking streets going out into the south frontage like that is a great idea. I see maybe more catastrophic failures down the road, but I also see by us losing lot 1 and leaving that hole right there in that particular area for that easement, for us, it's going to be a maintenance nightmare. For the homeowners, it's going to be a maintenance nightmare. There's going to be, beds collecting, trash collecting, broken down cars, I imagine, would end up in there. And then as well as Henson turning into a quick road to the south frontage and people doing 60 all the way down that road. I think our intention is probably going to end up to work on Scottsdale and widen that. I think that is probably in the betterment of everybody to have that done. And then as far as the chamfers go, I can only speak to the fact that after building that subdivision with 20 by 20 chamfers, we never have had one issue out there with line of sight. We did block wall the entire thing. We didn't plan on block walling this. As the block walls approached, if they stuck out past the house, they were dropped down. So, I mean, you have a good 150 feet between wall to wall with a line of sight. So, the 25 by 25 to 20 by 20 maybe doesn't seem like a big deal, but to us it is, because it makes us lose lots, which our goal right now is to build, homes for lower income folks, first time home buyers. So everything we can do to create more lots, to spread it out and, and keep our costs down is what we're trying to achieve right now. So if you guys have any questions?
No, it's I've developed subdivisions, plenty in San Luis, and I don't see that as the chamfer's not a big problem. I understand the concept. It's just that I think we have it ingrained in us that anytime that there's a requirement for a road, if it's able to be connected to another one, or if it can be in the future connected to another one, you're always going to have people saying, why didn't you do it when you had a chance? Why didn't you request it when you had a chance? We end up with that problem all the time. And sometimes, like in this particular situation, it isn't so clear cut. Sometimes it is, but this one is a little different because of the issues with the frontage road, but when I see it down below, I like the space and the separation, but I also know that they tend to become, when they're not much in use, they tend to become abandoned, so I can see it, but I still think, it's rather you do it than you don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you, Mr. Chairman. You talk about putting a right-hand turn only.
Yeah.
If you come up to south frontage. I've sit there and watched the people coming out of Fry's gas station where it's a right-hand turn only. Half of them ignore it anyway and go left. I mean, there's no enforcement whatsoever. They'll do what they want to do. The traffic on south frontage, especially during the visitor season, is horrendous. It's a mess and a half. Adding to it, another entry point onto there, it's just kind of like, it's hard, like I said.
You know what? 8 years from now, you'll know what the right decision was.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor.
I can't see anything but growth out there in the foothills. And if the state trust land turns into, if they sell that state trust land or they lease that state trust land to a project, a long-term lease, then there's going to need to be more exits out of there. So, to me,
Mr. Chairman, too, and I believe, if I remember right, the property south of the RV park along 12E, which would be the next street over, between the RV park and 40th Street, that's sold. That was state trust land that was sold back like 08, 09 or something, right before the crunch hit.
That's private
So
property?
that's still open for development, which is one street that this would also
yes.
Connect to.
Well, I
connect
think
to.
I think
Yeah.
if the state ever sold that trust land that was on Scottsdale and 40th, it's 180 acres, if I believe is correct. We're going to have a lot bigger traffic issues. You don't want 180 homes coming down Henson or to try to get to South Frontage. I mean, that's going to create nightmares. I mean, the whole new system of roads will need to be put in to handle that kind of capacity.
Yeah,
Well,
but things
I
aren't
know
gonna
we're thinking in the future, but, you know, right now, what's facing us is either requiring a road or not.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
question
McCall?
for staff. I imagine for engineering. So you talked about a right turn only. So what I'm trying to envision is, would you be looking at something that would have a concrete island forcing only a sharp right turn and then coming in from South Frontage Road, the same kind of an entrance, right turn entrance into that street?
It could be designed with, we call it a pork shop, so with a concrete median that allows vehicles going northbound just to make a right turn only. And then the ones coming in eastbound to make a right, well, right only.
Yeah.
So it's right in, right out. Yes.
Yeah, that can be developed.
That's the same thing they did on Fortuna, right there at Fry's.
Yeah. Well, like I said, 5 to 8 years from now, we'll know which was the right decision. But I really dislike, as I stated before, adding another entry onto that busy thoroughfare. But if it's well designed, I think people turn left out of Fry's because they can. But if you've got that, you call it a pork chop,
Yeah.
that makes that a lot more difficult to turn left. You're a real knucklehead if you do.
Yeah, to me, it would be a lot easier if there wasn't such a thing as a Henson Street. There is such a thing as Henson Street, and what they're asking us is not to improve it. I mean, if there wasn't one, I mean, if we were creating something new, but it's just a continuation, and whenever that parcel develops to the south, that's going to, we're going to be back here because that's, the regulations require a road there.
Yeah.
And and this is a waiver from the modifications. Again, the chamfer is not that critical to me, but not dedicating that road means we can't tell the developer on the south side also that he should do it. Because there would be
Right,
nothing
there
to
would be no
connect it
road.
to.
Yeah, nothing to connect.
And the staff is recommending that the road go through, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, staff is the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff are both recommending that the modification to not improve Avenue 11 3/4 C is denied. So that the road would have to be built all the way to the northeast corner of the subject property.
They'd have to do that anyway, wouldn't they? For their internal streets?
Mr. Chairman, the way the layout
signed it.
of the way it was submitted, the.
It's the back of a lot there, I think, or the side. I don't think any of those lots are facing this side, the street.
Right, so lot one,
Right.
the road would end right at the
At the front
entrance
of
to
lot
lot
one.
one. Mhm.
It's just another, 106 feet, right? 107 feet
Yes.
of road continuous.
Yes.
You would require them to build, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Oh, yeah, that's all, yeah.
It's internal. Supervisor Porch?
Maggie, on the east side of that development, is there any access to that road right now?
No,
No?
there's a subdivision, or I think that's a manufactured home park, and there is no access
There's no access.
to Avenue 11 3/4 C.
So mainly, in any traffic that would be on that road, it's gonna be from that area there.
On the west side.
Yeah.
From the
the west side.
subdivision, from the existing subdivisions and the proposed subdivision, yes.
And what is that property there, the commercial property at the top? Looks like a bunch of RVs
Yeah,
or
Mr.
something.
Chairman, that is a RV sales lot. The zoning of the property is also general commercial.
And then, please go back to the plat map that you just had up there. So what happens to lot number 2 if the road goes through? Are they gonna lose a chunk of that lot for the chamfer? Or is there room? You understand the question?
Mr. Chairman,
Room with lot number 1, if it's not there, do they have room to create the chamfer without interfering with lot 2?
Mr. Chairman, yes, the subdivision would have to have some slight redesign to remove lot 1 and put a chamfer on lot 2.
I was just trying to figure out, it looks like it might almost fit without cutting into lot 2, but, okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie. And anybody else? No? I'll take it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we, I think it's accept the recommendations of Planning and Zoning Commission, right? Which would give the 20-foot chamfers, but eliminate lot 1, and to have Henson go to the north boundary of the subject property. If that's correct, that would be my motion.
That's what staff recommends.
What staff recommends is what you're.
Staff and planning.
Well,
and
no,
zoning.
actually, planning and zoning recommends the 20-foot shaver, staff doesn't. And on the other side, both of them recommend that we
correct,
continue
Mr.
with the subdivision regulations.
Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yeah.
All 20-foot chamfers.
And I'll second.
Mr. Chair, so Russell, what you're proposing is 20-foot chaffers,
Chamfers.
whatever those things are, I know what they are, anyway, and the road go up through.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's, okay, thanks.
And that was
All
a
right.
P and Z recommendation, right?
Okay. The combination.
That's a combination, yeah.
Right. Any more discussion? If no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? There you go. All right. The next item in the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's item number 3. Public Works adopt resolution number 2020-11, finding that the public roads Mojave Lane from Clip Street to 14th Street and 14th Street from Mojave Lane to Avenue C, 5/8, City of Yuma city limits, were laid out, constructed, and opened prior to June 13, 1990, to accept the public roads for county maintenance and designate and classify said roads as primitive roads. Is that me being repeated at that?
Echo from the TV
Yourself,
outside.
yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Josh Scott, Public Works Director. If you'll recall, a few years ago, there was some discussion at the board here about which roads were maintained by the county and which weren't. That led to a series of presentations by Roger Patterson and myself. We gave some background on the different types of rights-of-way out there, some of the governing statutes, and some history on why some roads were accepted and others not. And back during those presentations, and is the case with this agenda item, we focused on public right-of-way. And those are roads that were dedicated to the public rather than to Yuma County through the land division process or the planning process. And those roads did not necessarily come before you for any formal action or acceptance. We also outlined the number of miles that the county has in public roads in those presentations. And just to touch on those numbers again, there's about 126 miles of subdivision public right-of-way out there that we do not maintain currently, that is not in our maintenance system. One of the things that came out of those presentations was our public road acceptance program that the board adopted last January. And that program provided a mechanism for residents to ask the board to accept their roads for some limited maintenance. But that program focused on unpaved roads. Of that 126 miles we have out there, about 125 of those miles are gravel roads or unpaved roads, which leaves about a mile, a little less than a mile of paved roads that we do not maintain. So this agenda item is asking you to accept a couple of those short segments that are out there that we don't maintain. A portion of Mojave Lane, it's about 1,300 feet, and then about a 300-foot section of 14th Street in between Mojave and then the city of Yuma city limits. State Statute 286705 is the statute that gives the board the authority to accept these roads. These roads that we're talking about today were not constructed to county standard, so they fit under subsection B of that statute, which means the board needs to determine that the roads we're talking about have been laid out, opened, and constructed prior to June 13, 1990. So I included some information in your packet to that effect. The roads were laid out as shown on the plat for Verde Valley Acres, which is dated December 19, 1968. And working with engineering, we reviewed some historic aerial photos, and those showed that the road was in use and paved by at least 1984. I also found some permits that the county issued to a number of lots along Mojave Lane dating back as far as 1974. So I think that helps support that that road was constructed and opened for use prior to that June 13, 1990 date. Should the board accept these roads, I do want to point out that per the statute, we're going to be limited to only maintaining those roads. They won't be eligible for reconstruction or any additional upgrades. We're limited to pretty much maintaining the status quo, which means we can fill the potholes, we can do some limited maintenance to hold that road together, but we can't go put sidewalks in or curb and gutter or anything like that.
Unless you form an improvement district.
Improvement district would be an option for the residents in there, yes, sir.
Okay. So we just couldn't go and do it ourselves?
No.
Without some
Correct.
sort of a source of payment for it?
Correct, they would have to be put in at no cost to the county. Since those roads have not received any prior county maintenance, they're pretty rough, a lot of potholes in there. So we estimate it could cost as much as $20,000 to get that road to some kind of a standard where it's a little more comfortable for the residents and we'll be able to hold it together. And then we estimate an ongoing maintenance of about $2,100 a year to get in there and address potholes and complaints along the way. There's also a second piece to this agenda item, and it's asking that if you do accept these roads, to designate them as primitive roads. That would be consistent with past board policy on similar roads and that primitive road designation. And I do want to reiterate, part of what Roger and I presented was the primitive road designation is separate from the maintenance. So statute limits our maintenance capabilities to kind of the status quo under this. Primitive road designation, all that does is provide some liability protection to the county. It doesn't affect the level of maintenance of those roads might receive. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about this agenda item.
Well, it was coming. The moment we opened that door, trying to do maintenance, more maintenance. I think anything that we do will improve the area, considering that it's going to get worse before it gets any better.
Mr. Chairman, this subdivision consisted of two north-south streets. The city annexed half of the subdivision, and they are maintaining the roads that they annexed. And the residents on the other side of the city limits are seeing that and asking why they aren't getting any maintenance.
The problem is the expectations. I mean, once we take it in, it's going to be, they will see something happening on the other side, and they will basically want the same thing. So we're just adding more people to the people that already complain that we don't service enough. All right. Any comments?
Yeah, I want to make a comment. That's in my district, and And honestly, I mean, I've gotten quite a few calls, but it's been because it's been an unprecedented presidential year of rain. And it's developed, I mean, those roads, I mean, some of the potholes that if you drive through there, I don't care what kind of vehicle you're driving, you'll be
In trouble.
it's a rough road with all those potholes that, because of all the rain that we got this last winter season. But some people in that neighborhood are willing to do. They've been talking about how can they
An improvement
improve
district?
improve it more, and they found out about districts. So I told them it's about them getting that the signatures, whatever they need, and when they're ready, they'll let me know, and we'll definitely I'll bring it up to Susan and get that going. But they're aware, and that I mean, Mr. Chair, you were
I know.
the supervisor for that area a long time, and Nora was also too, and I mean since day one when I got in, I mean I tell you I got calls from that area. But
Mr. Chair?
it's
Let him
it's just
finish.
about
He's venting already.
No.
kind of fixing the potholes, and that's the majority of the calls that when I get, it's about fixing the potholes. That's all they ask.
All right.
Mr. Chairman Martin, you might want to set up a meeting with those folks, or they could set one with Rachel Stallsworth and see, so they know what an improvement district would entail.
And I was, and thanks staff, thanks Susan and Josh for bringing this up, but I wanted to see this first and then.
See how it goes from there.
Yeah, hopefully people will see that we have an interest in helping them out.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. If we take over the maintenance, does that include we could come in and do an overlay? Because you're not adding sidewalks and curbs and stuff, but just an overlay to give them a good foundation.
In the past, in my discussions with Roger in scenarios like this, the statute doesn't allow for the addition of like concrete products or certain petroleum-based products. So we've done some skin patches, which are thin, I guess a very thin overlay that wouldn't necessarily go the whole length of a street to address some areas. But in this case, as Supervisor Porches pointed out, there's a lot of potholes in there. What I envision is probably spreading out that cold mix with a motor grader. I think that would be more efficient than having a couple pothole crews in there for a week trying to address it. So the effect may be similar. It's not going to last as long because it's not going to be as thick as a typical overlay.
If you keep overlaying that over and over again, you may get everything.
No, I would just, if it's something that could be done just right now type thing.
Yeah. Well, they're going to get to work on it pretty well.
Yes, so Joel, the Public Works Director over there, and I have talked about that, getting away from the lighter weight slurries. I think our roads are overall in a little bit better shape than the cities. We do still have a number of roads that will benefit from the lighter slurry, but going forward, we're looking at each subdivision individually to decide if it warrants the heavier treatment.
I'm glad you're looking at that. It's very wise. And would a street like this be eligible for that type of slurry?
I'll have to research that just a little bit further. My initial discussions with Roger a few years ago, we wouldn't be able to do slurry seal on something like this, but we might be able to get away with the lighter product. I mean, because slurry is petroleum based, and that's where we run into some issues. But I'll do a little more research on that and we'll find out.
Okay. Anyway, this is a way to get to helping this people in this area. So anything we can do to help, it's appreciated that you bring it forth. The only problem is in Mr. Porch's district. So if it would have been in mine, we would be talking so much about it. Or Supervisor Simmons, because you guys don't even have any streets. But the only problem is going to be people are going to say, well, when Mr. Stewart was in, Tony Reyes and now Mr. Porches, oh yeah, all right. Anyway, okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, but I'm going to vote no.
no.
Oh, yeah, I'm voting no.
I'll tell you a story about you. Good summer.
No, 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 no. Just make the motion, will you?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
There's motion and a second to approve the item as presented. Any more discussion? No more discussion. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're gonna qualify our ayes here. Okay, the next item is the planning and zoning agenda. Thank you, Scott. And for this, full legal descriptions of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. This is an expedited rezoning calendar. So these items will be open as a group for public hearing and acted upon by one motion to adopt the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any items that are removed by the board, by a board member for separate consideration. This item will be discussed and acted upon separately following the items on expedited. So this is expedited, means everybody has approved it. The first item is rezoning case number 2001, Adrian Vega, agent for TNNA Investments LLC, requested rezoning of a parcel 5.06 gross acres in size from rural area 10-acre minimum to suburban site build 2-acre minimum. This will be assessor's parcel number 755-07-004, located in the southwest corner of the alignment of Avenue 1 and 3/4 East in County 16th Street, Yuma, Arizona. Again, unless you will provide a PowerPoint presentation, and I guess I'll have to open a public hearing anyway. No? Not if we approve it in expedited process? I do have to open a public hearing though, anyway. So I'm gonna open the public hearing, which again defeats the purpose of a expedited process, but is there anybody here in the public that wants to speak, knowing that it's probably going to be approved? Okay, good. I'll take it back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve rezoning case number 20-01 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second to approve expedited item rezoning case 2001 as presented. All those in any more discussion? No more discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. That was easy. We'll move on to the regular public hearing items, and this one, staff will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. We have two items in this one, and in the first one is Development Services, Planning and Zoning Division, Special Use Permit number 2001, Sergio and Guadalupe Bautista request a special use permit per section 601.03X of the Yuma County, that would be 10? Yeah. Of the Yuma County zoning ordinance for an accessory dwelling unit on a 5.0 gross acre parcel, zoned rural area 5-acre minimum. This will be assessor's parcel number 765-16-004, located at 3899 East Chaparral Way, Yuma, Arizona, located within the 65-69 decibel noise zone. Okay, staff, give us a full presentation.
I will give you one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, presenting special use permit case number 20-01. The intent, this is a renewal. The intent is the applicants would like to be able to keep an existing double-wide manufactured home as an accessory dwelling unit. This is the zoning and vicinity map showing the subject parcel, cross-hatching highlighted. It's located, it's accessed via Chaparral Way on the north and Avenue 40 on the east. And it's the location of two dwellings, site built in 2006, and a manufactured home that was installed back in 1978. Properties 5, 6, 3, 6, and 5 on the south are properties zoned rural area 5-acre minimum, improved with a mixture of site builds and manufactured homes. Parcel 1 on the east is the location of the area M Old Water Range, and the subject parcel, it's under the 65, 69 decibel noise of the auxiliary 2. This is the site plan provided by the applicant, is dissected. Highlighted is the location of the proposed accessory dwelling, which is existing there. On the north is the new the residence that was built back in 2006. And as I mentioned before, the manufactured home was installed in 1978. Everything started in 2006 with a temporary use permit to keep the existing manufactured home as a caretakers while building the house. Then there was a temporary special use permit approved, and then two special use permits, 2009 and 2014. The owners have been really diligent on this. This is an aerial view showing the existing condition. On the north, you'll see the existing site built, and on the south, the manufactured home and detached accessory structures. This is a view looking northwest of the subject parcel. This picture is from September 19, 2014. This is the current view looking west of the subject parcel, and view looking west of the subject property, the south side. This is the existing manufactured home. View looking north at Avenue 4E. View looking west at Chaparral Way. Staff received comments from Yuma County Airport Authority and MCIS not in favor of renewing this special use permit. No comments were received from property owners within the zoning area. The Planning Commission recommends approval. Its staff concurs with that recommendation, subject to the following operational conditions. The approval of special use permit is based on the site plan submitted by the applicant. Any change from will require approval by the planning director. The accessory dwelling unit may not be used for rental occupancy. Also, the following performance conditions. An act disclosure statement shall be recorded by the applicant within 60 days of board's approval. All owners of their agents must provide an IRS 12-1134 waiver within 60 days of board's approval. Finally, a range disclosure statement shall be recorded within 60 days of board's approval. Mr. Chairman, this concludes this presentation. If you have any questions, applicants are present.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor.
is there any chance that they could split that property? Is it allowed to be split?
Fine.
The land uses act residential only allows
One per
probably
five.
one per 10 acres. But that zoning was established prior to the land use plan was, the comprehensive plan was adopted. So the property zone there are 5 acres.
You do have an SSB2 somewhere nearby and an SR2, which means,
That was rezoned back in 1990, the rezoning case 90-14. Before 2010 was adopted.
special use permits, what determines the time that we give them for? That we give for?
Priorly, staff was recommending timeframes of 5 years, and
Is it just a recommendation? There's no policy?
it was pretty much the standard time. The standard time that staff would recommend to see how it behaves in the neighborhood. And then as per request of applicants, they could request like 10 years or increase that time frame. In this particular case, we're not setting a time frame no more. We're treating the manufactured home same as a site built.
I don't know if that means anything.
Mr. Chair, this has been there for
Oh, yeah.
a long time.
Yeah,
32 years?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Supervisor McCall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't actually have a mechanism to determine if the secondary dwelling is being used as a rental.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, we don't.
All we need is ask, right?
That is correct. However, in this particular case, the gentleman on one of the pictures is the actual parent of the family. He's there.
I think that assumption was standing up.
Yeah, with a cane. That is correct.
Yeah, well, in this case, I noticed I was concerned about density near the, in a high decibel zone, and there's always a concern about, being next to the range, and there's always a concern about the base, or even in this particular case, the airport not wanting any additional density, but this is not adding any more density. This is basically keeping the density that's already there. God, my only problem is when, I don't know, I don't think I was here when we did that, but.
Mr. Chair, is there any way we could just leave it like it is into, into
Perpetuity, no.
perpetuity?
No, no, but we can make it for 10 years, so at least they don't have to come every 5 years if we give it to them.
Maggie?
Mr. Chairman, Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. Staff is not recommending a time limit for this special use permit. So if it's approved, the applicants will not have to come back in the future to renew the
That's
special
it.
use permit. It's been approved, or the
perpetuity.
recommendation is to approve it without a time limit.
Okay, there's your answer.
Thank you, that's what
And
I
Mr.
wanted.
Chairman, there was a letter submitted by Marine Corps Station
Yeah.
Yuma. I'm not sure if that's part of your packet.
We do have it.
Okay. Thank you.
They're always concerned about, anything that smells or feels like increase in density, so.
But this has been here for years.
All right, so what we're facing is a decision regarding a special use permit that was granted a long time ago for specific reasons that keeps coming back, and will keep coming back if we put a time frame on it. So staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission have requested that we go ahead and grant them a special use permit for an indefinite amount of time. That's a little unusual to me, but because technically it basically almost provides a zoning change, because we're allowing 2 dwellings on a 5-acre parcel. I can understand all the arguments, but that seems a little odd. I would say that Ed Fahili wouldn't just stand there and then, he would be telling us, well,
Mr. Chairman, the reason that staff is not recommending a time limit is because we did have information from legal counsel, and then also
just joking,
industry
Maggie.
trends that we cannot treat manufactured homes differently than a site-built home. So if staff does not normally request a time limit for a site-built home as a second dwelling unit, then
why would we
it's
ask?
not
that?
advisable
Why would we
to
ask you
request
for
a time limit for
In other
a
words, that's
manufactured
why
home.
you made the statement that you're treating this as a regular stick-built home, that you're not treating it as a mobile home anymore, which a mobile home can be removed and stick-built normally is there.
Right.
Okay, I think we've had a lot of explanation. We have to open it to the public. So I'm opening up the public hearing section of this meeting. If anybody in the public wants to address the board, this is the time. Okay, I'll take it back to the board for their recommendation or decision. Yes.
No time limit, to me, seems like a de facto zoning. I'd recommend we put a 15-year on it, and county staff in 15 years can look and see if it's been maintained, if there's any evidence that it's a rental now and things have changed. I just kind of feel uncomfortable with no time limit. What do you think?
I'd give it a 20-year. That way it makes sure that none of us are here. Have somebody else make that decision. Because, some of us seem to stand here for a long time.
Again, Mr. Chairman,
I know.
we were advised by legal
I
counsel
know.
that a time limit is not advisable. It's not
Okay.
enforceable.
This is one of those times where the legal people are, making a decision in favor of the applicant here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure you may.
Maggie, we have, over the years, allowed several special use permits for persons who have a manufactured home and have told us that they are going to remove the manufactured home once their site-built home is completed. Are you telling me now that all of those actions are invalid?
No, Mr. Chairman, this legal opinion came to staff about 2-3 years ago. So any special use permit that was approved for a manufactured home as a second dwelling or an accessory dwelling unit prior to legal counsel providing us with that legal opinion would still have to follow that time limit. However, if they property owners request renewal or request another special use permit, at that time, staff would not be recommending a time limit as we are doing for this case.
Yeah, legal keeps changing the rules of the game.
Yeah, changing the rules, that,
Okay, I think that this,
the board needs to pay attention to that.
and I think that what's happening right now is there's been a change in philosophy or rules or regulations that now are basically stating that you're discriminating if you treat a mobile home different than a regular home. And that's what's driving this legal decision. Now, the legal is saying you can't just, give a temporary permit because it's a mobile home and can be removed later. Either you give it or you don't.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Maggie seems very problematic to me going forward because there are persons with large properties who, you know, they've done what they can for now, and they want to retire there on their property, they want to build, a site-built home. So if they come in front of the board requesting that permission, can a special use permit have a condition attached to it that the manufactured home is removed once the site-built home is completed? Would that meet legal muster? Because if not, it's very problematic. It's going to cause problems for people.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor McLeod, there are two different types of, actually three different types of permits. There's a special use permit, which is what is before you today. There's also a temporary use permit that the zoning ordinance, for which the zoning ordinance has a provision for a property owner to live in a manufactured home during the construction of a site-built home or
The
a
word
more
temporary
permanent
says it all.
structure. Those permits expire upon the finalization of the permit for the site-built structure. So there is a condition stating that the unit has to be removed when the certificate of occupancy for the site-built home
It's granted.
is issued.
So you can, you just have to call it a temporary use
I
permit.
understand.
Those are temporary use permits.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification.
All right, then, let's move. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So the motion is to go ahead and approve this item as per recommendation?
Yes.
So it will be a special use permit with no time limit. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor of,
Second.
who seconded? You?
You made the motion.
You made the motion.
Hey,
Nobody
I
I made
seconded
the
it.
motion.
Second.
If there's no second, I'll second it.
Okay.
It's because I was moving it anyway, so. Yeah, went too fast. You guys are too slow today. What's happening here? You know, all this social distancing is getting to you. There's been a motion by Supervisor Pankras and a second by Chairman Reyes that we go ahead and grant this special use permit number 2001 with the conditions as stated before. Okay?
Thank
All
you.
those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, now you can go. Yeah. Yeah, this crowd, you never know. Oh, you know, tough crowd. All right, the next one is Development Service, review and approve the Planning and Zoning Commission calendar year 2019 annual report. I don't know about this. The coronavirus
Yeah.
took this calendar and, yeah.
Thank you,
Took it
Mr.
home.
Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. Yes, this is the calendar year 2019 annual report as required by the Planning and Zoning Commission's bylaws. The report contains information concerning the Planning and Zoning Division, the Building Safety Division, the Environmental Programs Division, and some information from the Engineering Department.
It's a nice document for people who want to know what you actually do, and then it's got all these activities separated by class and.
So this is a 5-year comparison of activities for the planning division or the planning section. The total at the bottom indicates that there's been an increase in the level of activity for the types of permits that are processed by staff or the applications that are processed by staff. In calendar year 2019 compared to calendar year 2015, there's an increase of 47.5% in the overall level of activity. As far as the land division permits, there's a 127% increase from calendar year 2015 to 2019. 250% increase in rezoning cases and 11% increase in the number of variance cases. And I'm strictly comparing 2015 to 2019, not across the board. This map shows the cases that were approved by the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Adjustment in 2019. There was 1 minor amendment approved, 9 rezoning cases, 3 special use permits, 1 commission initiative to amend the zoning ordinance, 1 commission initiative to amend the Comprehensive Building Safety Code, 13 variances, 5 reversion cases, and 1 final plat approved in Yuma County. The majority of activity occurs in the foothills planning area. There's also a cluster in the northwest Yuma planning area, and then some activity up on the mesa.
Sounds like a song.
There were 2 text
Up in the
amendments
mesa.
that were approved by the Board of Supervisors, Commission Initiative 1802 and Commission Initiative 1902. The 1802 was the amendment to the Comprehensive Building Safety Code, and Commission Initiative 1902 was the amendment to the zoning ordinance that dealt with the recommendations or the actions that were brought forward by the Planning and Zoning Commission subcommittee. Staff is also involved in various outreach activities throughout the year. In 2019, staff conducted 3 outreach activities, 1 at Gila Ridge and 2 at the main campus of Arizona Western College, and 1 at the San Luis campus of Arizona Western College. So this table shows the activity for the zoning enforcement section. This map shows where zoning violations are occurring in Yuma County.
Poor
The
Darren.
majority of activity occurs in the foothills planning area, and there's also there's also a cluster in the northwest
You
Yuma
know, the more
planning
you
area.
live
You
in
can
a,
ask Craig and Maggie. I am addressing issues because they hear.
Big time.
that's in there, what happened, Martin?
No.
Oh, yeah, wait a
That
minute.
area right there, it's
That's-
not in my district. Seriously.
Whose is
It's
it?
Russell's, I think. No,
Is that Tony's?
no,
Uh-huh.
mine is down below, isn't it?
Got the map.
Wait a minute.
I have 12.
So for the building safety
Move
division,
that crap out.
this is the activity from 2015 to 2019. In calendar year 2019 compared to 2015, there was an increase of 92% in new construction valuations, 114% increase in new single-family residential permits, and a 57% increase in total number of inspections conducted.
Wow.
Yeah, it was shaping up to be a good year.
This map shows where the majority of where the activity occurred. Again, the majority of
Looks
the
like the
activity takes place
it
in the
looks like the
foothills planning
violation
area.
map.
And then there's a cluster in the northwest Yuma planning area and on the mesa.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's you, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for
Poor
giving them so
Darren.
much work.
So the environmental programs division, again, in calendar year 2019 compared to calendar year 2015, there was a 30% increase in fees received, septic tank inspections, and septic tank permits issued, an 11% increase in septic tank permits finalized, and a 27% increase in site evaluations.
And just why are you comparing 2015 to 2019?
Mr. Chairman, it's a 5-year comparison, so it gives you an idea of 5 years ago, this is what was being processed, or this was the activity versus current year.
Okay, I'm gonna let you slide on that one, but it's more. I'm actually more interested in the year-to-year type, turnover. I mean, is it going up? Is it going down?
Mr. Chairman, I
from
can
year to
change
year?
the report next year to
Yeah,
reflect
all
the
right.
year-to-year
Next year,
increase.
just bring it in. Well,
Yeah,
I
I'm
want a
not- I'm
10-year.
just not summarizing the year-to-year. Mr. Chairman, for the engineering division or engineering department, there were 11
In 5 years?
study projects that were completed.
In 5 years?
Mr. Chairman, I
It
did
feels
not
like
get that
it's in 5
information from
years.
the engineering department.
No.
And these are capital improvement
Yeah,
projects
Marcus
that were
Parks is not one
completed.
of them.
You have to excuse him. He's been cooped up, so he's picking on you.
We all have.
Continue.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes
Oh,
the
wait a
report.
minute.
All
But
right.
that was a year, 11 projects completed last year, right?
For
I
the
mean-
engineer, capital improvement projects for the engineering
The
division.
2019 fiscal year.
Yes.
All right. Okay, any questions? No, thank you, Maggie. It really is informative, and I think it gives, if people would read it, it'd give them a true sense of what's going on in the county and where it's going on in the county. Cities have a different challenge. If you were to show the growth in San Luis, you would have a lot of little bubbles in there.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, thank you. You don't need any motion or anything, right? You're just presenting it?
Mr. Chairman, the motion would be to approve the report.
Okay, well then, that's,
Second.
it's been motion and second to approve the presentation of the 5-year Planning and Zoning Commission calendar and annual report. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Maggie. And last but not least, we have a reversion hearing. It's a public hearing, and in accordance with section 404.01, that must be an I or 7. That's why I don't like to read those. Of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, the board will conduct a hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification in the following cases. Rezoning case number 07-35 in accordance with the same section of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum and low-density residential 40,000 square feet minimum. Zoning classifications for assessors parcel 747-56-003. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, right? Okay, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas presenting rezoning case 0735. Rezoning case 0735 was approved by the Board of Supervisors on April 7, 2008. Subject to the completion of the schedule of development, the Board of Supervisors approved 2 extensions on May 20, 2013, and on April 2nd, 2018. This time, the owners requested another 2-year extension. The subject parcels are located on the west side of Avenue 4E and County 15 3/4 Street. The original zoning map shows the subject property zone RA40 and RA10. The current zoning map shows the subject properties as PD. The subject properties remain in agriculture production. And the next slide shows a proposed subdivision layout. Schedule for development was not met by the applicant. A tentative plat needed to be submitted with a final plat. And irrigation water was required for each lot, and a second point of access was also required as part of the conditions of approval. The Board of Supervisors has 2 options, to grant an extension of 2 years to comply with the schedule for development, or to revert the zoning to the original RA10 or R140 zoning district. The staff recommends to revert the zoning to the original zoning classification, RA10 and RA40 zoning. This
Okay.
concludes the staff presentation. Any questions for staff?
Question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can you go back to the one slide from the end, please? The things that had already been done, have they met any of those, like the irrigation? Have they done anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, they haven't met any of the conditions.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Oh, no, the property is in agriculture.
Still ag?
Still act, okay.
Still ag.
Mr. Chairman, the schedule
Step
for.
back 6 feet. There we go. There you go.
Mr.
Right
Chairman,
there.
the schedule for development required the approval of a tentative map. There was a tentative map that was approved, however, it expired. So at this time, there is no approved tentative map or final plan on file for this property.
You know, normally you would ask, is it the owner requested a 2-year extension, right?
Yes.
Okay, so normally, we would just simply say, look, as long as somebody's willing to do that, I mean, why make him go through the whole process again? This one is a little odd because it's been around since 2008, and my initial belief at the time was that, look, we just have to give it time for the market to, get going again, but the market's been going for a while now. So it just seems odd to me that nothing has happened to it. It must be because, he or she or whomever the owners are just content with it being used for agricultural purposes and really don't feel the need to do that. But that's sort of speculative in nature, and that's really creating, some heartburn. Let me open it to the public and see if there's anybody here that wants to address the board with this. The owner obviously isn't here, or representative, right? Did he send a letter? Yeah, that letter there. Yeah, forgot that. Okay. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I recognize the name Tuscan Ranch. This has number 2, so there is a number 1 that was developed, right?
That's there on the left,
Yes,
isn't
Mr.
it?
Chairman, the subdivision is located to the southwest. Yeah.
Yeah, but that one that has via Tuscan Way,
Kenneth,
Okay.
that one was partially developed, right?
Yes.
Okay. It hasn't even filled out though, right?
Just 5 homes, it looks like.
wow.
I haven't been there in a while, and I don't know if they still have lots available.
I don't even like the name of the LLC, Water Asset Management.
Yeah. Okay, that is true. I knew I recognized the name, so. All right, thank you.
I mean, it doesn't impact us negatively. It's not asking us to do anything, is it? I mean, they're not saying, okay, well, they're just asking for a 2-year extension to deal with this. And this is agricultural, and at some particular point in time with the pressure on water resources, if they're farming, one of these days they're going to decide that they're using a lot of water.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor
why
McLeod?
don't we go ahead and make it 3 or 4 instead of just 2? It's gone on for 12 years.
Well, don't we give the applicant, once they have a tentative plat, a 2-year extension? That's what we give them when they begin the process. So, I mean, it behooves us to follow the procedure that we normally do with the project. Otherwise, there isn't one. I mean, if we just, I mean, I don't have a particular problem. Of the time frames. It's just that it seems to me like they haven't really done much. They let that tentative plat expire, so that means to me they're not really intent on proceeding. So giving them a 2-year extension may not mean anything.
Mr. Chairman, yes, if you approve an extension of time of 2 years, they could submit a tentative map within 2 years and then
Begin the process again.
begin the process to
Okay, 2 years is enough.
proceed with the final plat, with the tentative and the final plat. However, if after 2 years, we would have to bring it back for reversion again.
Yeah, well, it's up to the board. So what's the pleasure? Oh, wait a minute, wait. Let me see. Did I open it to the public? Yes. Did I close the public hearing? No. I hereby close the public hearing and turn it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, rezoning case number 07-35, I move that we grant a 2-year extension.
Is there a second? Boy, I tell you, either you slow or you're falling asleep, one of the two. All right, so there's been a motion and a second to extend or give him a 2-year extension on zoning case number 07-35. Any more discussion? If no more discussion, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
And please advise the company that, if they come back with this, if we're here, it's going to be a little different. All right, let's move on then. And we're going to almost discussion and action items. Well, the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. And the first one there is county administration discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items. A report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills by the Arizona State Legislature, and an update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priorities. Wait until I finish. All right.
It's your ventriloquism.
Yeah, yeah. The echo is strong. The force is strong with you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Paul Melcher, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Chair, in conjunction with this item, I attached the report from the Washington Capitol Hill visits. If there's anything in particular you'd like me to cover, or I have a couple general statements to that. The first one being one of the most valuable lessons that we learned, I think, from the Hill visits was the use of the delegation letters. And what that means is that if we have something that's particular emphasis from the county for legislative action, what we want to do is we want to let our Arizona delegation know our intent, but also we could use one of those as a direct sponsor to get a letter that's a letter of support for that particular piece of legislation that we want to comment or develop. And then that lead would go around to the other members of the Arizona delegation to get signatures and then distribute that combined letter to the proper authority. So I think that's what we're making use of in the future, rather than just trying to shotgun a little bit in terms of getting support for those items, is work in that direction. Mr. Chairman, also wanted to report as an update, the USMCA. I know that we've heard that, it's been moving forward. It had passed through the United States. So Canada just provided notice to the United States and Mexico that it had gone through its, completed its domestic ratification. So the next step is for all three countries to get together to agree on one effective date. So that'll be moving forward here in the short. They didn't give a real estimated date, particularly maybe all the other legislation or the legislators are out and dealing with coronavirus issues, but there will be an effective date announced, and hopefully as soon as possible. I did also want to give you an update on the Senate H5038, which is the guest worker bill that had been worked on. Everything was moving forward very rapidly. It looked like it was moving. It had moved through the House and into the Senate, but again, it has stalled in the Senate. I double checked, and it's been read in the Judiciary Committee twice, but it hasn't moved forward with any specific hearings yet. On another federal note, I wanted to give the board an update. There's a federal program called eConnect, and last year the federal government provided about $500 million in eConnect money, or 2 years ago it had increased that amount last year to $600 million, and they're looking for additional funding. Yuma County didn't qualify for any of that eConnect money for broadband for a variety of reasons, but what they also have done is, in support of that local legislation from the state, they're looking at increasing through the Arizona Commerce Authority. Last year's grant amount was $3 million, and the Commerce Authority had awarded all those grants. We as a group didn't have enough developed yet to be able to apply for a grant, so what we did is we created a broadband action team. And so what we've been doing as a group, and the stakeholders in the team include GYDC, all the cities and towns in Yuma County, and several of the other local businesses, particularly ag, as one of the stakeholders. And what we're looking to do now is to create a master plan for broadband for our region, including some fiber that could be dedicated to some of the city and county uses. And we're also looking to tap into, the state legislature was looking before they had convened at increasing the amount of broadband grant monies to $10 million. So we think that based on the initial discussions through our broadband action team, we would first create the master plan as phase one, and then phase two, go after additional grant money to be able to complete the improvements that are developed as part of the action team. The other aspect we're looking at, through the CARES Act, there was some broadband funding that's also been apportioned. There's not been a notice of funding yet released on how to access those funds. And two components that might help is through the economy and through healthcare. Since a lot of people have been accessing healthcare through the on-site apps, what they're looking for is to increase that broadband capacity, not only to deal with the coronavirus issues, but for future issues that might come up too, as part of a change in model of how healthcare might be administered. So it will be looking at those two to increase broadband capacity in the community, and just keep tabs on that to see how we can apply for that money. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
More than questions, I have a comment. With everything that's happened since the last time we formally met, I think that the priorities in reporting might have to change a little bit. You know, what I like to hear as much as possible is updates on what's happening with the stimulus bill, how it impacts the county, you know, the kind of information that we may be able to put out, that you can basically keep us updated on, which is, you know, the process of how do you apply to, you know, say, for example, that we, okay, but let me back up a little bit and rephrase that. As a county, when we declare an emergency in the county, do we become the channel through which the cities are going to get some emergency funding, or are they supposed to get it directly from the state? Is there some legislation that controls that?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, right now, it's either between 2.4 or $2.8 billion that was appropriated to Arizona to deal with this directly from the feds as part of this last stimulus. A portion of that will be taken right off the top, and I think it's going to be based on population from counties and cities of 500,000 or more. And I know that based on the call, and I would defer to the county administrator for more specifics on that, but there's still a discussion about how those counties and cities that are under 500,000 would be able to access that funding.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know.
How about state? Does the state channel anything through the county? That was, I mean, state funding, state emergency funding.
Oh, emergency funding, we use our emergency management director to do the request for supplies and then request for reimbursement once we get to that point. So we're tracking all of our time that's related to COVID-19. We're tracking all of our supplies that we're ordering related to COVID-19. So those would be submitted in the future for reimbursement.
Are we still talking about the state legislature, or are you going forward with that report?
Well, the state legislature, really the three items I wanted to do for that report include the fact that they aren't likely to convene until August 13th. That was the tentative date that was provided last Friday. There are three items that still are going to be discussed as part of that moving forward. Apparently the JLBC is going to look at economic forecast on Thursday and figure out and make some kind of budget report and forecast going forward. The vote by mail elections is going to be a big topic moving forward to figure out how that could be accommodated. And then there's also been discussion about moving tax delinquency dates from May 1st to June 1st. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, there hasn't been that much activity going on at the state level, other than what you've seen for the governor's executive orders and then some of that funding tied to those executive orders.
And based on what I've been reading, which is, I guess we can wait until the administrator's report and see if she's got any more information regarding, you know, what's been going on with COVID and how we're dealing with that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could speak at a legislative level, at the federal, we've been tracking, and we've actually, our regional stakeholders, which include about 20 of us, got together and created a Yuma portal to be able to disseminate SBA information. SBA has its own site for small businesses, but if you can go on, if you have it on your computers, you can go on at the Greater Yuma Economic Resource Portal.org and look at it. So what is it? Yeah. It's a combination and compilation of not only SBA, but it's the local and state grants. It's the summary of the CARES Act. It provides information to businesses on how to apply, how to access, but it also even goes to the state programs in terms of unemployment, the federal unemployment, and those opportunities as well. So that was a first step in relation to responding to the federal stimulus. We do a tracking every day to see what comes out, because a lot of the stimulus has to get distributed based on the notice of funding. And so as those notices come out, it's been very interesting, because a lot of times the federal government was a little bit ahead of even its own rules and regulations. For example, last Friday, there was supposed to be the walk-in loans of $10,000 to the businesses just through the SBA, and a lot of the banks didn't even have the paperwork or the necessary guidance to make that happen. There's still a lot of fine-tuning that has to go on as part of that through SBA and then through the feds too, to make sure that the banks understand all the ramifications of the lending, and then also to make sure that everything is clear as part of accepting those loans by what the businesses do. So,
Mr. Chair, Paul, how are you disseminating the information from our 20 local, our website or whatever it's called, that you guys got together and put together? How are you disseminating that to the community?
So the primary website sends out updates and broadcasts, and we had a rollout live.
Uh-huh.
So when, I think it was already 2 Fridays ago, my mind is escaping me a little bit, but we have a live event to roll it out. And so all those contacts through the chamber, through GYDC, we have a link to it on our site too. So if you go to the COVID relief, it takes you directly to that portal.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
all the communities and all of those partners have also links to their websites directly to that Greater Yuma portal.
Mr. Chair, and the city also has it on theirs, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, good. Okay. And all the cities, San Luis, Somerton, Welton, they all have it on theirs?
That's correct. Yep, they were all partners with us on this effort to get one centralized portal for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, again,
I knew that.
when
I
you,
just
when you
wanted to
come
make sure
up,
everybody knew.
yeah, when you come up next time, I mean, we may have to put a little more focus on, what's been going on legislatively and otherwise, but at the level that deals with that, with the current emergency.
Mhm.
I've been reading the emergency declarations, is it declarations or orders from the governor anyway? And it seems to me, orders, it seems to me like every once in a while, like, I have a tough time understanding exactly what is it that he wants, or, I hear from the police chief in San Luis that he's going to detain people and so forth, and I read the declaration and it says that, you don't need to have documents proving why you're on the street, and it's just a little confusing. It seems to me it's not as coordinated as we would like to. Now, there seems to be different levels of activity in different cities regarding, different issues, for, I don't know if you're probably aware, we had a court case from the city of Yuma asking for information. It's been a little bit, we probably need some sort of a clearinghouse for that, for all that information that's coming, forth, and at least so that at least we'd be aware of what's going on at the different municipalities that are within Yuma County.
Mr. Chair, you kind of read my mind. What I was going to ask a follow-up question, if I could. What we're looking at here is, did the board like how the split was for the last stimulus summary, where it was broken down into divisions in 4 separate pieces? Is that how you'd prefer that?
That would probably be a better way to do it. Yes.
So I can provide another summary like that, and then I was looking at having some kind of clearinghouse or some kind of collection of the executive orders. Would you like to get updates when those get issued, something along those lines?
Yes, please.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, I'll work with the county administrator and we'll get something set up then, and
Right.
so we can keep it on a continual basis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Anything else from Paul? If not, thank you, Paul. If nothing else, we'll move on to events. Boy, I tell you, calendar and current events. Well, it's been a long 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks since we last saw each other. Just going through what's happened over the last, again, 3 weeks, it's so much that I don't think we sort of, I don't know, sort of revisiting that is kind of even tough. But suffice it to say, people, that I do appreciate all the support and all the efforts that you have undertaken in your different locations, because Supervisor McCall has been busy with the city of Yuma on this case, and it's been that kind of a week. Well, I don't know if I even should ask, have you been out there anymore? Because you don't want to. No, but
I've been attending my meetings.
Have you?
Uh-huh.
And anybody else been attending, so we can send the police department out?
Yeah, no, they're all telephonic.
Oh, it's been a change, and
Yeah.
the effort that we try to get to have a meeting through Zoom didn't work out, because technically we're not really set up that way. We're not prepared to conduct it that way. It seems to me like we've got to fix some of the technical difficulties here before we can, try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was worth a try.
Yeah. Like I said, I could hear you guys and see you, but you couldn't hear me.
You look orange. I thought you were President Trump there for a minute.
Dang
you know, you look orange.
He did.
In
look
my,
orange.
something was going on over there. You had like a filter or something?
Hmm?
We thought you had the virus itself.
No. Uh-oh.
He'd been out working in his yard.
No, really, you know, I tell you what, we just need to remind people, you know, just keep your distance. And you know, those of you who can bear, you know, should wear a mask. I mean, you know, it's protecting other people. And I know it seems like it's just changed. Life has changed. I mean, you know, any place you visit nowadays is, you know, you have to wait until, you know, it's like two going in and two going out. And you have to be outside, and it's really been difficult. But at the same time, it is the only way we're going to be able to stop the spread. So please, everybody, just a reminder, just stay home as much as you possibly can. Remember, anything you do along those lines is going to it's going to work out for the best of everybody. And I want to commend Kevin and the efforts that he's put out, and the emergency team out there, the health department. I tell you, Diana's been steady. She goes, and the administrators, you know, really been a calm influence in everybody. And so everybody's been doing their job. And even though we're not in the news as much as the city of Yuma or the city of San Luis, I can tell you right now, we still operate, and we still, you know, provide the services that, you know, the residents of Yuma County expect from us. So, yeah, I don't know if I need to ask you guys to give you reports, because you know, it's just, life is different.
Well, Mr. Chair, several of us have been on all the phone calls from the governor's office that for a week were every single day, and now they're every other day. And several of us have been on the calls from Senator Kirsten Sinema's office and from Senator McSally's office. And then several of us have attended the CSA caucus meetings and the CSA board meetings via telephonics, and the CSA legislative update meetings. And then Martina and I were both on the YMPO meetings telephonically. So we've been attending all of our board meetings, but now mostly it's done through either telephonically or through Zoom or through a variation of both. So.
Anything, Mr. Simmons?
Actually,
Been quiet.
just phone calls and emails addressing those as they come in.
Mm-hmm.
Russell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of teleconferences and a lot of email traffic. We're all operating as best we can remotely, and I do commend County Administrator Lord, our legal team, and Chairman. We've all done a good job.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And of course, our health director has been besieged. But she's holding up. Doing a good job.
Supervisor Porches?
Same thing.
Which begs a question. When we talk about, some of us have been on a phone call, do we still have the requirement that if three of us by any chance happen to be on the same call, is that a quorum? So
Not for listening and not discussing business.
I don't know. I mean, I know that's a legal question.
Ed's kind of shaking his head over there.
I think it's saying yes, but you know.
Yeah, how are you going to distinguish them if you're all discussing an item? It's a quorum.
Yeah. So what I guess the recommendation is that if three of us find ourselves listening to the same thing, or in a way able to discuss something that may have to do with this emergency, you have to be cognizant of the fact that there's still that limitation about, you know, if it's above two, that there's a quorum and it needs to be posted, or at least, you know, some sort of notice.
Mr. Chair and Bill, what about the CSA meetings? The County Supervisors Association meetings, those are big.
Those are probably posted, aren't they?
Those are posted, correct?
Yeah.
Presume so, yes.
Okay.
Posted by CSA.
But Bill, on these teleconference calls until the end, because everybody is muted, we don't have any idea who's on that call.
Yeah.
Should we?
The governor's office ones.
You're just listening.
Well, you're not participating in the meeting. You're just.
You're allowed to speak. But we're not,
yeah. Mr. Chair.
Discussing things that come from the board, they're just issues.
Mr. Chair, and, yeah, Bill, it's the executive orders that the governor has put out. It's what the governor is planning on doing, what the governor's been doing, what's coming out of the governor's office. Everybody is on mute. You have to submit your questions ahead of time, and then they call on you to ask their questions. The only one from here that asks questions is that one right there. Russell asked some really good questions, so, but you know, it's open to all the county supervisors statewide.
Because it is a very unique situation, so I really haven't thought about that. If that would be considered a meeting, if you're
Why don't you
just
think
on a
about
phone,
giving
yeah.
some guidance, because as Supervisor Pankratz said, until somebody pipes up and asks a question, you have no idea they're on the call.
Right. And Mr. Chair and
We
Bill?
can do is just post all of them.
Yeah.
With
The
it-
same thing
the-
with Kirsten Sinema and, I'm sorry, Kirsten Sinema and Senator Sinema and Senator McSally's calls. There's a huge number of people on those calls from everywhere. So
Yeah,
it's more informational meetings than anything.
There will be questions asked, but there's no discussion.
No.
Can't be. There may be discussion back and forth with Mr. Blink or Genevieve, the lady that's working with him. But between participants on the phone, there is no discussion.
Perhaps that's the distinction then. There's no interaction between the participants.
No.
It's
There is
whoever's,
not.
it's
No, there
whoever's
is not.
sponsoring or hosting the call.
That's the
Maybe
only
that's the
interaction.
distinction.
Yeah, you're called on, you put your question out. There's a little bit of two-way, but you're right, with the other persons on the phone, Supervisor Pankratz is on there, she cannot engage you.
No.
Perhaps that's the distinction, and that's why it would not be something that would have to be posted ahead of time.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, Susan?
Yeah, I think Paul mentioned that with the CARES Act, there's some discussion about and concern that the counties that aren't, that don't qualify currently, there's a provision that the states will get all the money and then they divvy it up to the 500,000 plus populations, but then there's more in the state's coffers than that. So how do they distribute it to counties and cities that are less than 500,000? There's no provision for that. They're assuming that the states will come up with some way of distributing that money fairly, but there's no requirement for the state to distribute it, nor a formula for distributing it. So that's actually a National Association of Counties issue, as well as every state. So Craig Sullivan is representing Arizona CSA for those kinds of questions with Cinema and McSally's office to try to get that clarity within the CARES Act. Because right now we're shut out unless the state decides it's going to give us some money, and then what amount would that be? So it's a flaw in the way that the act was passed and not specified. So they're going to try to get some clarity and try to get some direction so that there's concrete money that's actually going to come to the counties out of the CARES Act, which was intended to happen, but it's just there's a gap between what was intended and the mechanism to make it happen. So we're working on that. Also, I have a phone call every morning and every afternoon with the emergency management director, the public health director, the public health emergency management planner, the county attorney's office, public information, communications, and Paul Melcher with intergovernmental affairs to talk about what's happening with COVID-19, whether it's internal to our organization or community-wide, the number of cases, informational campaigns that we want to get out for people to encourage them to stay at home and stay healthy. So we have a variety of things we talk about and stay up with every morning and every afternoon. So we have a good team understanding and a rhythm of how we're getting information. We're posting information every day at 3 p.m., every weekday at 3 p.m. for the entire community. The Joint Information Center that Kevin's in charge of has more than 20 or 30, even more, individuals associated with that come from all the communities and all the stakeholders in the area. So we're keeping everybody informed that way, and then they're feeding in information as they get it in their communities. So we want to make sure that we're providing one source of information that people can go to and rely on to get what's accurate and what's up to date. So I really appreciate everybody on the team and their efforts on a daily basis to stay up with things.
Mr. Chair, I have one comment. Susan, is there any chance that we can find out how many people have recovered? I asked you that on a text, but
we don't have that information. I did hear a national news story this morning about 260,000 people who have recovered across the country, and what they went through, what they experienced, and how what they're doing. But locally, we don't keep that information. We wouldn't have access to that, and it's more a HIPAA and a privacy issue for those individuals.
Mr. Chair, Kevin,
Sure.
Is there anything that can we ask the hospital?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Pancrasi, had some discussions because, we're monitoring what the public's asking online and things like that. And this question comes up a lot, other than some of the HIPAA guidelines that are in place. And we know other communities are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it provides a false sense of security to people out there. One, because people that are infected, that are self-isolating at home, aren't required to report that they're better. So
Okay.
that number will never be accurate.
Okay.
And people look at these numbers as being completely accurate. So people that our health district is in touch with, and if they are at home recovering, they're not compelled to call back and say, well, I'm a lot better.
Okay.
And so that number might never, be accurate whatsoever.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right. Anything else, Susan? Anyone else? Okay, then this is it. The end of the meeting. Thank you very much. What?
I think you were going to broach the subject about moving forward and what direction you'd like to take. Kevin has researched getting some equipment so that you are able to do a Zoom meeting if necessary, and whether you want to just have one meeting a month, which is all you're required to do by statute. So some of those issues you might want to think about and have a future discussion, and the chairman can decide kind of where we go from here.
I think this worked out relatively well, unless one of you was infected, but we won't know. But I mean, it worked out pretty well. That we were keeping distancing. I suppose that it will matter if there's something in there that requires that we take action. I mean, I'll look at we'll look at the agendas, and if really there isn't anything in there that really stands out as needing to be approved within a certain amount of time, then we'll hold it. We sort of tentatively we will hold our next meeting. We will hold the second meeting later this month. If something is time sensitive, we'll do it this way. If not, then we'll act appropriately when it comes. The other issue that we didn't talk about that was actually in the Sunday's paper is whether we felt whether there was any more research about having these meetings at the city of Yuma building, which I'd suppose that what you probably should be given is instructions to go ahead and meet with Phil and see the details. I mean, we've been so busy with the COVID-19 situation that really a lot of stuff has been put in the back burner. But that's one of those items that I think that's best dealt with at the technical level. In other words, if the board feels that we need more information, then you should be allowed, and Kevin should be allowed to take a look at some of the technical, can we have the meetings there? Do we have to have, is it, exactly, is it going to cost us more? Those kind of things that, I think, should be addressed in some ways. I mean, I appreciate the offer, and I think most of us would probably like to, use the building. But if it's expensive, if it requires for us to, pay a fee, if it requires for us to have any particular special equipment, those type of issues, those type of technical issues, I don't think have been addressed yet. So, I'd say that that's one of those things that can continue.
Well, and like you're saying, expenses, and this is a temporary fix. Do we want to spend a lot of money on
I don't think we're
temporary?
moving. I never looked at a move. We can't discuss it, huh? Too much discussion over the simple item.
Okay.
I was about to gobble it off, and then I got carried away with the stuff. Okay, all right, so this is it. We'll put it in the agenda for whenever